Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our iceHQ Adult Development Squad's Rules and Safety Overview Seminar. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Carl Brewer, and I'm the head coach of the iceHQ Adult Development Squad, which is the two teams that play in the Div 9 program. So tonight at this seminar, this is open for pretty much anyone who's in Div 9 from either our squad or from the Big Deals or the Griffins and the Southern Lights. So there's 5 teams in Division 9, which used to be called C2, for those of you who aren't aware of it. A little bit of housekeeping. This session is being recorded, so you'll be able to play it back later if you want to. Also, I very much strongly encourage you to ask questions. I know on Zoom it's a bit tricky. We've all been using Zoom now for a couple of years, courtesy of a certain virus, and we all kind of got used to it. And I understand that it is a bit tricky to kind of feel like you're putting your hand up and you want to ask a question. But I very much want to make this as interactive as possible. I just don't want to lecture you for an hour because it's kind of boring for me and you don't get much out of it. So please feel free to butt in and ask questions at any point. But I'll do my best to accommodate questions as we go along. Some stuff is covered in more detail than others, and some stuff is still evolving even as we speak with regards to some of the rules for Div 9 and possibly even Div 8 through this season at iceHQ. So just that's kind of how it's going to work. So it's all being recorded. I'm not looking at the chat because I can't really see that while I'm doing this as well. So if you do want to get my attention, you're better off just to unmute and say, "Oi, I've got a question for you." Please do feel free to interrupt whenever you like, and we'll make this as interactive a session as it's possible to be over Zoom. Anyone want to test their mic and make sure it's working? Now is your chance. No problems. All right. Can you all see me all right? Not that you necessarily want to, but all the same.
Yep, we can see you.
Thanks, Kat. It's good to hear from someone. Kat played in our program last season, and he's one of our goaltenders this year. It's great to have you with us again, Katrina. I'm very much looking forward to you being able to share your wisdom with our newer players. So to start off with, let's see if this is going to scroll in a way that I expected it to. Page down is the button, isn't it? Where are you? Page down. There you are. Okay. So first thing during the game of hockey that you may or may not necessarily be familiar with is stoppages. The game is pretty fast, but whenever a referee blows a whistle, you must immediately stop. It means just leave the puck. You might see NHL players and so forth. They'll pick the puck up and flick it back to the referees or something like that. We'd very much prefer that you don't do that. If the game stops and you hear if you hear a whistle, you just immediately stop playing the puck. Just skate away from it, leave it alone. That the referee is sorted out and the game stops immediately. Why do you think that might be the case?
So no one gets hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a safety issue. Especially for goaltenders, if the referees lose sight of the puck, they'll stop the game. So you might be able to see it, and you might think, "Hey, I can score a goal here." But if the goalie is in a vulnerable position, the referees will just stop it. And it's very much a safety issue. It's also once the whistle's blown, everyone kind of switches off. You take that sort of subconscious, okay, I don't have to think for a minute. And that's when people can get hit in the back with pucks and stuff like that as well. So referee blows the whistle, you stop the game immediately, no questions asked, no nothing, regardless of what you can see. That's what the referee decides is what happened. The referees will be pretty strict on it. We've had referees kick players out for playing after the whistle. Sometimes the whistles can be a little hard to hear, especially if there's a lot of background noise going on. And sometimes the whistles themselves aren't necessarily all that good. But we'll do your absolute best. And if you do continue to play after the whistle and you notice that you've done it, immediately apologise. Say, sorry, I didn't mean to do it. And appeal to the referee's kindness, or you'll get a penalty for it as well, which we don't want to do. All right, now contact. iceHQ's beer league is non-checking. What does that mean? Well, first of all, what's a check?
Shoving on purpose?
To an extent, yeah. It's an attempt to separate the player from the puck, as a general rule. You're allowed to contest the puck. If you and an opposition player are having a battle for a puck, you're allowed to make contact. You're allowed a fair bit of push and shove. But what you're not allowed to do is run into them when they're not playing the puck, or you're not allowed to deliberately separate them from the puck as opposed to play the puck. So say, for example, two players are skating towards each other and they're both contesting the puck and they collide with each other. That's considered fair. If, on the other hand, you collide with the player with no attempt to play the puck, that's not considered fair and that's considered a check. In that instance, you'll get penalised. It's nothing at all like field hockey. In field hockey, you're not allowed to put your body in the way at all. Anyone here actually play field hockey who got here tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how if you put your body in field hockey, what happens? The body in the way with field hockey, what happens?
Yeah, it's a free.
Yeah,
Straight away.
it's not the case in ice hockey. In ice hockey, in a non-checking league, you can certainly protect the puck with your body. You can put your body in the way. You're allowed to do that, and that's a big difference between field hockey and ice hockey. That, and you're allowed to use both sides of your stick, and you're not restricted to right-handed only. There'll be collisions. I'm going to show you a couple of videos, but one of the real key things to be aware of is that as in a beginner league, as Division 9 is, we've got to be very mindful of the collisions that happen, because there's going to be collisions. It happens, but especially if you're maybe a bigger or a faster player, you've got to be particularly mindful of the sort of things that can go wrong when you accidentally collide with another player and the potential for injury. No one's trying to get hurt here, and I think that's a real key point. So I'm going to show you just a couple of videos. I'm going to show you an example of a check first. So this is a video from a C2 game, which is Div 9 now, from a couple of seasons ago. Hopefully it'll behave itself reasonably well. So you can see the player there in the blue. The puck's come across to him. And he's going to go and try and get it. The player in the green is coming across to contest the puck at that particular point. But watch what happens now. Has the player in the green really gone to play the puck, or are they playing the body first?
Body.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a check. All right. So that in that case, the player there in the green is Ash. And those of you that came to our training session on Saturday last week, I think it was, you would have met Ash. She's seen this video and I've got her permission to use it. And she'll say, oh yeah, I checked the guy. I didn't mean to. All right. Now, in that particular case, no real harm was done. But at the same time, that's a check. There's been an attempt to play the body before playing the puck. And that's really the key to what that is. Where we need to be particularly mindful as well is the consequences of, in particular, bigger, faster players playing against players who are a little bit smaller. So we're just going to watch this video now as well. We've got lots of these sort of little video excerpts to pop up. So we'll just have a look at this one. If you look up in the top right-hand part of the screen, you'll see what happens in this video. Right. So in this particular case, we'll just kind of watch it again. You can see there's a player in red who is just circling around. That's a Joker's uniform. And there's a Southern Lights player here with the puck. And I'll just try and step through it reasonably slowly. I think this thing will have itself in a not quite frame by frame sort of a way. Right. So in this place, there's a clear intent to play the puck. Right. You can see the puck. I'm not sure how clear it is. You might be able to see it. Puck itself is just there. And we've got these two players, both of whom are legitimately contesting the puck. They're not doing anything illegal, and it wouldn't be worthy of a penalty if there was a collision here. But it is one of those things where you've got to be careful. Just let it play. Right. So in that instance, there's been a shoulder collision with a head. And that resulted in a concussion. And I think these days, pretty much everyone would be well aware of a much more, I guess, careful approach to concussions that started in the last sort of 5 or so years in terms of sport, both recreational and professional. We've all heard of the concussion protocols and CTE. If you haven't heard of CTE, you don't really want to. It's not a very nice condition, and it can only really be diagnosed after you're dead, which is kind of a bit ordinary to know if you've even got it. But that sort of collision can lead to concussions, and it wasn't necessarily anyone's fault. It's just I'm showing that one as an illustration of the fact that we need to be very careful when we are skating around, especially at beginner leagues, because a lot of players don't have the skill or the vision to either brace themselves or get out of the way. And in that case, it wasn't really anyone's fault. It was just a bigger guy and a smaller girl, and they collided, and the smaller girl unfortunately lost physics and ended up with a concussion. They both fell over, and it wasn't anything against the rules. It was just a misjudgment. So it's something we have to be very mindful of, that we don't let that happen. There's some other stuff that's legitimate. I'm going to show you another video here. And this is what's called fair push and shove. So you have a look on the bottom screen. I'll just draw a little box around it so you can kind of see what's going on down here. I don't know if you necessarily all saw that push. Show it to you again. Okay, did you see that? Or did anyone not see it? It's perhaps a better question.
Yeah, I missed it.
Okay, well, I'll see if I can just kind of get a little bit closer to it. So the player there in the white has given the player in the red a bit of a shove from behind. You see it now?
Yep.
The player there in the white, by the way, that's me. And the player in the red is a guy I know pretty well. He's actually one of the Hellfish coaches. That's JT, and you'll get to know him if you play Hellfish. He's a good guy. And in that particular case, that's actually a fair push. We're contesting for position in front of the goal net, in front of the goal, and I'm trying to make a bit of space. He's covering me, and I've just given him a push. But notice I didn't push him over, and that's a key thing. I knew who he was. And I knew that if I gave him just a push on the hips, it'd move him forward out of the way and give me a little bit of room, but it wasn't a dangerous push. If, on the other hand, I had whacked him across the back of the head, that would have been different. Or if I had tried to trip him up or anything else along those lines, or if I had in fact pushed him over, I probably would have received a penalty for it. So if you're in that situation in the goal mouth, you are allowed, or it's called the slot, you are allowed a little bit of push and shove, but again, you need to be reasonable about it. If you're a big, strong player and the other player is a bit smaller or whatever, and you give them a decent push and they go flying, for starters, you're going to get penalised. You'll do 2 minutes in the box. And secondly, you're risking hurting them. And the key is we don't want to do that, regardless of what happens in a game and how close it is. And number one priority is to protect ourselves and our opponents from any injury. So you can give someone a push, but if you overdo it, then that's a problem. So you want to err on the side of less rather than more as a general rule. Make sense?
Yeah.
There's one more of these little instances. I'm just trying to remember what happens in this one myself. I'm sure I put it here for a reason. All right, here we go. Now this makes sense. You can see in front of the goal down the bottom of the screen. So down here, there's our favourite Ash again. She's quite famous in these videos. And there's going to be a little bit of push and shove here. That's okay. You're allowed that in a non-checking form of hockey. That was just a battle for position. Both players wanted to be in the same place, and you're allowed to give each other a bit of a push. But again, it's measured. You're not allowed to go whacking into someone at a million miles an hour. If you're a 110 kilogram gorilla like I am, you're not allowed to go after the 50 kilogram kids and smash them into the other side of the rink. That's not how it works. The idea is that you can have a measured and controlled battle for position, but you have to be safe and reasonable about it. Right. And finally, of course, this is not the NHL. You're not going to the big show, and this is a league where fighting is not permitted. So if you do get yourself later on a copy of the Ice Hockey Federation rulebook and read through it, you'll find there's an entire chapter devoted to rules about fights, which is kind of eye-opening the first time you read it. You think, really, they've got that? Okay, because there's all sorts of various different technicalities about fighting in high-level hockey. In our non-checking league, fighting is absolutely forbidden. If it does happen, both players involved in the fight will be ejected from the game immediately and probably suspended. So don't, right? No matter what happens. We have a bit of a saying in our program: if something goes wrong and you feel aggrieved about it, come and talk to one of the coaches, and we will listen to you and see what we can do to sort it out. But there will be no escalation on the ice. Very much, it's a de-escalation thing. And apart from anything else, usually, if there is some sort of an issue on the ice in Division 9 beginner grade, it's an accident. 99% guarantee that whoever whacked you with the stick, tripped you up or whatever, didn't mean to do it. Okay, it's almost 100% certainty that that's the case. I'll show you an example of where that can go wrong. Should have put that in there, actually. That was silly. It's in here instead. So I'm going to show you here a video of where it goes wrong. With an escalation, and this is from a game between the Griffins and the Jokers last season in C2, so the same grade as you. And it's a good example of how you can get it wrong without meaning to, and then escalate, which is absolutely a no-no. See what happens here. All right, did anyone see what happened there?
Yeah, he smacked him with his stick after he fell.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the right player. So what happened here is, I'll just kind of jump forward to the relevant part. You can see there's a player in red who's in the goal mouth, and there's a bit of a battle for position, not terribly much, but a bit going on. And there's a player here in Griffin's gear who skates across, and I'm pretty sure that's an accidental trip. I don't think that was intentional by any stretch of the imagination. That particular player is using the stick to balance themselves. And then the player in red trips over and says, hey, hang on a sec. And another player skates forward, and he then proceeds to whack the other one. It's like, no. And for two reasons. Firstly, the retaliation. That was that was a suspension, I think, or at least a warning. And yeah, it's a no-no. Let's just don't do it. All right. Any questions about that at the moment? How are we doing?
Good.
All right. So there's some other really counterintuitive stuff to be aware of. First of all, what is beer league? Offside, off ice. Okay, yeah, sorry, off ice, not offside. Beer league, if you're not familiar with it, it's a North American term basically for amateur adult sport. Now, in our beer league, there are drinks provided at the end of each game, except for the last game of the night. So part of your fee includes getting a free drink. Now, the drink can be a beer, but it doesn't have to be. If you don't drink alcoholic drinks, that's perfectly fine. I don't. And so you get a free soft drink or a free water or whatever up in the bar after the game. We don't want you to ever, if you haven't got your drink, to go up to the bar and just kind of reach over the counter and grab your own. Wait. There was a player who did do that once a couple of seasons ago, like missed out on his free drink, so he helped himself. And then got the whole team barred from having free drinks for the rest of the season. I think that particular player ended up paying for drinks every season instead because they felt so bad about it. So the whole team was going to miss out. So yeah, don't help yourself. There are free drinks, but you tick yourself off on the list up in the bar above the game. Again, it doesn't have to be alcoholic. We do ask too that you don't have a bit of a party in the car park afterwards. We have sensitive neighbours, and we don't want to upset them terribly much. And we already play hockey until late at night, and it's quite a noisy game. So we want to do our best to keep our neighbours as comfortable as possible and prevent them having reasons to complain to us. Have I still got that share going? I don't. I'm sorry. It's not helping, is it? We wanted that. There we go. That's better. All right. So yeah, don't help yourselves. All right, next one. Yep. Car park's not an extension of the bar. Don't party on the car park. We know about that. The other part is if you've got the late games, please don't turn left, leaving the rink and go down past the residential area. Drive along with the rugby field on your right-hand side along that way, and leave the rink in that manner. And try and avoid the temptation to do burnouts and toot your horn, and all those sorts of things that people do, believe it or not. So we want to be as good to our neighbours as possible so that we can continue to play hockey in that venue. If you're confused about why that's the case, the rink only started playing the late games with a lot of noise probably in the last 3 or 4 years. And so like the neighbours do have a legitimate case. It's not like someone moves next to an airport and starts complaining about the planes. We've increased what we do, and so it's only fair that we are as considerate as possible as we can be to our neighbours. So that means just basically not being idiots in the car park, and driving respectfully, trying not to, cricket stump your exhaust and be as loud as you can and crank up your stereo to full bore when you're leaving at midnight. I think it's pretty reasonable. Contact. Okay, so a bit more about the contact rule. We are playing under the International Ice Hockey Federation rules, in particular the IIHF rule 101.1, and that is the girls' rule. Now, personally, I think that's kind of wrong. I think men and women should play under the same rules, and the fact that the International Ice Hockey Federation doesn't allow checking hockey for women at the elite level, I think, is a disgrace. But that's how it is, and unfortunately, we can't do very much about that. But in our case, we are playing under that rule. So you can have a read through those rules. I'm not going to read it out to you. That's kind of pointless. But you can get yourself a copy. It's a free download of the International Ice Hockey Federation rules. You can just Google it if you want, or you can. I think I've got a link in here later that you can track down as well, and have a read through that rule, and just kind of get a bit of an idea about it. There's some really good tutorials online about it as well. USA Hockey has some really good ones. If you've got a spare hour and you want to go looking at example after example after example of what is a hit and what isn't a hit, then there's loads and loads of them. It's probably mostly a waste of time. The assumption that you want to work under is that it's okay to contest the puck. It's not okay to hit someone without contesting the puck. And if you consider that as the as kind of the baseline, everything else will make sense. So I'm not going to go into that in any great detail because I don't think there's any real need to. There's also interference. Anyone here play footy? No one? I think basketball, you're allowed to shepherd as well. You're allowed to get in the way, or you're allowed to use other players as obstructions. Can't remember exactly. It's been a long time since I paid much attention to basketball. But the idea is that you're not allowed to use other players as a shield, and you're not allowed to prevent other players' movement. It can be sometimes a grey area between interference and checking, but as a general rule, you're not allowed to deliberately put yourself in the way of someone else. You are allowed to hold your ground. And if someone's charging towards you, you are allowed to brace yourself. Not like basketball where you have to let them knock you over. In hockey, you're allowed to brace. So if someone looks like they're skating towards you and you don't want to move, you don't have to get out of their way. You can, like, if I'm standing in front of the net and someone wants to push me out of the way, I don't have to get out of the way. I can stand still and just say, do your best, try and push me out of the way if you want. But that's basically the gist of the interference rule. It's similar to, but not the same as checking. I don't want to go into great detail about that unless anyone has any specific questions. But throughout the season, you'll find that there'll be penalties for interference and penalties for checking, and you're like, oh, that's right, I remember now. Yeah, I did it. Sorry. Equipment. This is a really weird one. If your stick drops, if you break your stick, you're required to immediately drop it. Seems a bit weird, doesn't it? Why do you reckon that is? Anyone want to hazard a guess?
Safety issue.
Yeah, a broken stick's pretty dangerous. Our modern sticks are carbon fiber, and they've got shards poking out of them, and they can be pretty dangerous. In the old days, they were wood, and they would splinter, and you'd have wooden spikes effectively poking out of broken bits of stick. It was pretty dangerous. So the rule is, if your stick breaks, you must immediately drop it. I'll show you an example.
Supported scheme after being
This is from, any of you remember the Ducks in the Pacific Hockey League from about 2 years ago? If not, I'm going to show you a video from that.
supported scheme after being in the penalty box for that first goal against. Drillnick now protecting the puck, still with it on the half wall, drops it for McMahon. A nice little slapper there, probably fanned on.
Did you see what just happened?
Could we watch it again?
Yep, of course. Things happen pretty quick in hockey, don't they?
After being in the penalty box for that first goal against. Drillnick now protecting the puck, still with it on the half wall, drops it for McMahon.
His stick broke when he
Yeah,
had
it's snapped in half, didn't it? That's Michael McMahon, or Muff to his mates. He's a bit of a legend of Australian ice hockey, and he was playing there for the Melbourne Ducks against the Central Coast, whatever they're calling themselves that particular season. So the mob from Erina in northern New South Wales, and that was at our rink. And he snapped a stick in half. And what does he do?
Nice little slapper.
He dropped it.
Yeah, he just drops it immediately. What he does in that situation is he skates back. You don't slightly off camera,
Kucherov to get it.
but he picks up another stick from one of his teammates who basically holds it out to him, and off he goes.
For Ivan.
and then does a really good job of preventing a goal being scored in a really dangerous situation from a tactical perspective. It was a beautiful back check. But the point is, he broke his stick, so he immediately dropped it. It doesn't mean you have to leave the game. You can continue to play without a stick. If you watch NHL games, you'll notice they usually break a couple of sticks a game, and the players usually continue to play, especially if they're in defence, just using their body to stand in the way, and there's not an awful lot you can do, but you can be a witch's hat. So you can continue to play without a stick, but if you do break one, immediately drop it. The referees will take care of it. There's some other little bits and pieces about equipment. Your helmet has to be hockey specific. There's an example here of a helmet being worn incorrectly. He's going to get away with it, Bedard, but see how his helmet visor is up above his eyes?
Yep.
Supposed to be down to the tip of your nose if you're going to use a visor. Now in iceHQ's league, we actually have, and look, I'm not going to say it's a huge deal. It's just one of those, it's how it should be sorts of things. If you're going to use a visor, and I use a visor personally, I'm not saying you should use a cage, but I use a visor because I'm one of those old school guys who played before we even had to use visors. You should wear it down to the point of your nose. At iceHQ, as opposed to most other leagues, men and women are allowed to use visors, so that the half just covering down to your nose. In most leagues, women are required to wear full face covering, and men are allowed to wear down to the nose visors. But at iceHQ, we think if you're dumb enough to want to have your jaw broken by a puck, doesn't matter if you're a girl or a boy, you can do either. So in our league, women are allowed to wear visors, don't have to wear full face cages. But it's just hypocritical of me because I wear a visor and not a full face cage, but we do very strongly recommend that you wear a cage, especially in beginner leagues. People wave their sticks around a lot, they get high, you wear a stick in the jaw, it's not going to end well. At the very least, you can lose teeth. Sticks are pretty hard. So it's not a bad idea to have a full cage, regardless of whether or not you're allowed to. But you should, at the very least, a visor, regardless of male or female. If you're going to wear a visor, do also very strongly recommend that you wear a mouth guard. A player down there at the bottom is a photo that Drew Smith took again from a Ducks game a couple of seasons ago. That's Hayden Dawes showing you how not to use a mouth guard. If you're going to use a mouth guard, wear it properly. That's just dumb. Who's seen Matthew Tkachuk in the NHL and how he wears his mouth guard?
No.
Right, he wears it like Heinze does. It's just kind of like Dorsey does. It's just kind of hanging out of his mouth. If you're going to do that, don't bother with a mouth guard. It's not going to do any good. You're just going to choke on it one day. Wear it properly or don't wear it at all. But yeah, if you're going to wear a visor, strongly recommend you use a mouth guard. And if you probably should use a full face or a goldfish bowl or something like that. They are a better idea, especially for beginner grades. You've never seen Matthew Tkachuk. You watch hockey?
Who does he play for?
Panthers.
Oh yeah.
He's a rat. All right. Another photo there by Drew Smith, again from a Ducks game. That's high sticking. Keep your sticks down. There are some real tricks to keeping your stick down on the ice. One of them is a thing called pitchforking, and I think I've got it's not a pitchforking. Yeah, I've got some videos of pitchforking here. I'm just going to show it to you. A lot of you have probably been told that you should have two hands on the stick all the time. Let me know if you have. Who's been told you should always have two hands on the stick? Anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Right? It's crap. The vast majority of players at almost any level have worked this out. There are a number of issues with having two hands on the stick at all times, and one of them is you tend to do what's called pitchforking. So I'm going to show you a video now of one of the reasons why you shouldn't. I'll show you a couple. It's actually a really bad idea. Why it can sometimes be a thing is because often beginner players start out with those wooden sticks and they're really heavy. And unless you've got two hands on them, you basically can't move them at all. But modern sticks are lightweight carbon fiber things. That's just not an issue. So let's watch what happens here. See how that stick's waving around high in the air? That potential for whacking someone in the face?
Yeah.
I mean, there are other reasons why it's bad too. It's slow, and it also means that your stick's not anywhere useful from the point of view of actually playing the game. But waving around high up in the air, that's called pitchforking, and it's a really bad thing to do. You can see a little bit earlier on that stick blade comes quite close to another player's face. Right? Don't do that. Keep your stick on the ice. You can do a stick on the ice with two hands, but it's easier with one. You don't have to have two hands on the stick all the time. There's another example of it here. I'll see if I can just kind of give you a good example of it. So this was an incident that occurred in a game about 3 or 4 seasons ago. One of the players involved in it is Lisa Mack, who is now playing for the Hellfish, and she's in the green jersey over in the corner. Right, so I'm just going to highlight it a bit. Watch what happens over here. All right, that stick just whacked her square in the face. Right, see that? It's an accident. I didn't mean to do it. She got pretty stinky about it, as you can imagine. But that's because the guy's pitchforking and he's lost his balance. He didn't mean to whack her in the face. It was an accident. But it's partially a technique fault. It's that, I've got to have two hands on the ice and two hands on the stick and my hands are way apart. So I'm just kind of waving her out in the air like some sort of a weird billy club I want to snot someone with. And Lisa's face got in the way. And fortunately for her, she's wearing a full cage, so she wasn't hurt by it. But even so, it still gave her a pretty decent whack and a decent scare. And then she got cranky about it. She tripped him up. She's angry about getting hit in the face. And it fortunately didn't escalate any further, but a few people were required to be talked down out of a tree when that happened. Get your sticks on the ice, yeah? There's some other rules that are relevant. Tripping. Tripping's an interesting one. If your stick causes an opponent to lose their footing, the referee has no discretion. They have to give you a penalty. There's nothing they can do about it. They don't have the option to say, oh, it was an accident, you didn't mean it. It's like you trip someone over, automatic minimum 2 minutes. There's also a rule in Div 9, and it's supposed to be in Div 8 as well, but sometimes the refs forget. You're not allowed to deliberately leave your feet. So I'm sure if you've watched a lot of games of hockey at high level, you'll see players diving and sliding and putting their bodies in the way on the ground and stuff like that. We don't want you doing that in beginner grade, and we've made it illegal. I'm going to show you some reasons for why it can be so dangerous, and what are some examples of what it looks like. Because we're trying to protect you. This happened in a C1, so a Div 8 game about 2 years ago. Safe play. That's horrifically dangerous. They were lucky it was towards the end of the game, because the player in green who's on the breakaway, just watch that again. If that had been earlier in the game when the ice was a bit more slippery, that guy would have gone headfirst into the boards. What could go wrong?
Hurt your neck.
Yeah, broken neck. Welcome to quadriplegia. No thanks. Right, be careful. Stay on your feet. And there are a bunch of other reasons for why staying on your feet is valuable. Keeps you in the game. Once you've dived, most of you can't get up fast enough for it to actually be terribly useful anyway. You've taken yourself out of the play, and it's such an incredibly risky thing to do. So that's a really blatant example of it. We all get passionate. We want to win the game. I get it, but at the same time, we've got to measure it and remember that we all want to be able to go to work tomorrow, or maybe not go to work, but certainly do something. Here's another example of something similar. Come on, Zoom, where did you go? Okay, just trying to my Zoom session to talk to me again. There you are. Too much stuff on the screen. Right, so that's another example. It's actually the same player. Puck comes out, diving for it. All right. That's a 2-minute penalty in our grade. It's not in high grades, but in Div 9 and Div 8, or at least it should be if the referees are enforcing it, that's a penalty for deliberately leaving your feet. You can trip over. You're not going to get penalised for falling over. It just happens. We get that. But you're not allowed to deliberately leave your feet. You can drop to one knee to block a shot if you really want to, but you're not allowed to dive for a puck. You're not allowed to dive in the way. We've got one more example of it. This is fairly example heavy, but I think it's the best way to show it. Same game. This time it's a different player, but you can see down here in the middle. Now that player risked tripping over about 3 players when they did that. Stay on your feet. Not just a good idea, it's the law. Or, our rules anyway. There's some other stuff. If you're not familiar with these rules, and the reason why you're here is because you're not too many players on the ice. You're not allowed more than 5 players in a goalie or 6 players. In my team, certainly, we will occasionally pull a goalie at the end of the game, so you can have 6 on the ice. You're not allowed to have excessive players on the ice, but the rules about the change are a little bit flexible. You are allowed to change once the other player who's coming off is within about 1.5 meters to 2 meters of the boards and is committed to making the change. So you can be getting on as they're getting off. You don't have to wait for them to be all the way off the ice before you get on. But if you're in it, if there's any if the puck's close by when that's happening, so say for example you're changing and the puck's close to the boards where you close to the player's bench where you're making that change. If while you're changing you play the puck, you'll be penalised, and the team will get what's called a bench minor. So we'll have a player will have to sit the penalty because it's a team offence, not an individual offence when that happens. So you get the team will get a 2-minute penalty. We'll have to sort of pick someone at random and say you go and sit in the box for 2 while we have to kill this penalty. The puck is allowed to be accidentally deflected off you, but the referees will often call that anyway because they don't all necessarily understand the rule. But the puck is allowed to, if you're in the process of changing and the puck hits you for some reason, the referee shouldn't call that for too many players. But sometimes they will by basically a misunderstanding of the rule. If that happens, don't argue with them. It never makes any difference. We just cop it sweet. There's the last one about that too is sportsmanship or being a bad sport. It's a recreational hockey league. We're not going to the NHL. There's not millions of dollars at stake. Be nice to each other. If the opposition scores a goal, you don't have to cheer for them scoring goals, but you don't heckle and jeer either. You just say, "Yep, okay, we've got to do better." If you score a goal, you don't skate in front of the other team's team going, "No, no, no." Right? That's called bad sportsmanship. We don't do that either. We can celebrate with our teammates, but we don't be dicks about it. Okay.
I got a question about the changing.
Shoot.
It's Brian. Sorry.
Yeah, all good.
Does everyone change at the same time? Like
No.
every player? No.
You change whenever you need to.
So who coordinates that? The coach?
You do. You do.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way it works, and different teams will do this in different ways, for better or worse. In our team, or in our teams, in the dev squad teams, we don't actually run lines. You might have heard of lines, a center, 2 wingers, and 2D, and that's a line. Or you might split it up into a forward line of a center and 2 wingers, and a D line of it being 2 defenders. We don't use that as a concept in our particular division, and there's some really good reasons for it, which I won't explain right now because it gets a bit involved. But we get you to rotate on position. So say, for example, as a team, you've got 3 left wingers. If you're the left winger who's on the ice, there's another left winger who's waiting to replace you, and there's a left winger that you've replaced. And all you do is you just rotate with them. So a typical shift, the amount of time you'd spend on the ice would be 45 seconds to maybe a minute at most. So like we did at the training session, you get out, you sprint, you come in and you sit down and you rest. And that's how it's supposed to work. And in terms of coordinating that, you do. We will help you. Certainly, our program will. We will help you for the first sort of 3 or 4 games until you start to manage it a bit more yourselves, and then we pretty much let you do it. We figure that you can mostly tell the time.
Yeah. Okay.
But you coordinate yourself. It's not like soccer where someone has to hold up a flag and say you can change now. In hockey, we change on the fly, and we keep our shifts really short. Why is that? Why do we keep our shifts so short?
So you got energy?
Yeah, because it's a sprinting game. We're not coasting around. We're not cruising. We're not jogging. We're going flat chat, and you can't do it for very long. And one of the reasons why hockey is so fast is because of those short shifts and quick changes. It's pretty amazing. The fact that it actually works is pretty amazing too. But that's the gist of it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you.
Offside. Now, offside is one which will catch a lot of players out. The hockey offside rule is different to a lot of other sports offside rules. And if you haven't played any sport, it'll be even more confusing. But we find soccer players get confused by this a bit too. We've had a number of soccer players who've just been constantly bamboozled by hockey's offside. But hockey's offside is actually very, very simple. No one is allowed in the offensive zone, so you're not allowed to cross the blue line into the offensive zone until the puck's in there. If the puck comes out, all of you have to come out before any of you can go back in. And that's the rule. You'd think it'd be pretty simple, wouldn't you? But it's different. People haven't seen it before. I think I've got some video of it, which will help. Yep, here's offside. I'll show you some videos of people being offside. There's a way of thinking about it. It's called puck you. I'm not trying to be rude. That's for later. But puck, then you. So puck you. So the puck can go in before you can go into the offensive zone. See, the offensive zone is crossing the blue lines. That's a third of the way down the rink. So we'll just show you an example of some examples of this. And expect to get it wrong and expect to get lots of offsides. It happens. Don't beat yourself up, it's learning. All right, so in this situation, the blue team is attacking. So the green team, you can see their goalie in the goal net there. The blue team, the puck, hopefully you can see where my mouse is. The puck is moving off in this direction. It's about to cross the blue line. Now, all of the blue players are offside. All three of these blue players are offside because the puck has come out past that line. Hopefully you can all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so all of the blue players have to come out past that blue line before any of them can go back in. So see how they're all trying to get out? Now, in that case, they've been caught for offside because there's a player up here on the right who hasn't crossed over that blue line yet. Can you see? This one here?
Yeah.
Crossed over that line, and yet these players are playing the puck back into the zone. And what that does, the referee blows a whistle, offside. It's not a penalty, but it's a face-off outside the attacking zone. So that's one example of it. Another one. I think this was from the same game. So this time it's the green team that's attacking and the blue team are on defense. You can only ever be offside if you're attacking. You can't be offside in defense. Doesn't happen like that. So the green team, the puck's gone out past the blue line. So all of the green players have had to go out past that blue line as well. And you can see there's one. This one here. It's a little bit confused. And he's offside. Still staying there, still offside. Eventually the other players in the corner put the puck back in, and that player in the green is like, oh yeah, I was offside, wasn't I? Whoops. Here's another one. This is a really clear example of it. I probably should have shown you this one first. So the situation here, the green team is defending. They're actually on a penalty kill. There's only 4 of them on the ice, but that doesn't matter. It just makes it a bit easier to see. And so the blue team are attacking. So in this particular case, the puck has been cleared out of the zone by the green team. And see how the puck's gone past the blue line?
Yeah.
What that means is all of the blue players have to leave the attacking zone before any of the blue players can go back in. Let's see what happens. Whoops, sorry. All right, did you see how they all came out? I'll just show you again. All right, so they all know. They all know I've got to get out. Now, the other team are doing a penalty kill. Remember that box we did at the training session? See, they've set up their box defense. So the blue team are all trying to get back on side before any of them go in. And that's how you do it. That's how to not be offside. Anyone got any questions about that?
Yeah, I've got a question. Just say the puck goes over the blue line, but the defending team takes back into their
Takes it back
into
into the
our
zone.
offensive
Yep.
zone. Would our team have to leave?
No, not in
And
that circumstance. If the team takes it out and then brings it back themselves, that negates the offside.
Yeah.
Be aware though, most referees won't necessarily know that rule. So you might find that a team, it's called when the team breaks it out to get an attack and then brings it back in, that then negates the offside, and all the players who were offside are now no longer offside, and they can get back into the contest. And there's actually, see if I can find it. See, you've asked a good question. I've got a video example of it. Just bear with me for a second while I find it. I haven't got it in there. I should probably put it there at some point. It's a good question. Thank you. Just bear with me while I track it down. So priorities. So it might take me a while to find this one. So I've got another part of offside. Now what I'll do is I'll track it down and I'll put it up in the Facebook group so you can see it, because it can take me too long to do it now and I don't want to waste time. It's already sort of 10 to 9. It'll take me ages to find it, but I will track it down and I'll show you a video of exactly that situation where it was a Bruins versus someone game and Bruins ended up scoring a goal for it. So I was happy. Not happy about today, but anyway. Anyone want spoilers?
Yes.
Curse those Leafs. Anyway, so the whole point behind offside is to prevent you from having a player. Sort of, you have in football, you have full forwards and stuff, and everyone tries to kick it to the full forward, and then the full forward scores the goals. That's not hockey. Hockey is supposed to move it forwards. Sort of similar in intent to the rule in basketball. No, sorry, soccer, where you're not allowed to just sort of have someone sitting in and waiting for it. But the idea is, the puck, you can't go in until the puck goes in, and if the puck comes out, you all have to go out before anyone can go back in again. If you remember that, it's pretty simple. If you are inside the attacking zone and everyone's yelling out at the top of their voice, offside, 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 guess what? It's probably you. So if you hear offside, look up. The referees will be calling it as well. They'll usually have a hand up and they'll be yelling offside. You may or may not hear it, because some of the refs are not as loud as others, but they're supposed to yell it. And also our teammates will be yelling out, offside, offside, offside. Oh yeah, I am too. It means you've got to get out to the blue line. You don't have to go past the blue line, but you do have to touch the blue line. Okay. If in doubt, get out. That's one way to think about it. Icing. Now, icing is a rule which is very much misunderstood. And in the case of iceHQ at the moment for Div 9, we're looking to change it anyway. And there are some pretty important reasons for that. What icing is, fundamentally, is if you play the puck from your half of the rink, so in your defensive zone for your side of the red line, and it crosses the goal line at the other end without anyone touching it, that's called icing. And the player is supposed to then be brought back to your defensive zone for a defensive zone face-off. I think I can show you a video of it here, which will sort of explain it a little bit. So just bear with me while I get the video up. Apologies for the animation, but you can see the green team play the puck from their side and the puck crosses the red line. That's called icing. No one touched it. All right. Now, where it gets interesting at the moment, and this is something that I don't want to confuse everyone, but we're actually having a pretty involved discussion at the moment with the rink management. It is possible, and the iceHQ icing rule at the moment for Div 9, and it's only been introduced this season, we're trying to get rid of it, is called hybrid icing. It's a kind of a weird sounding name. The problem with icing is in that particular situation that you've got on that video, it's actually fairly clear. The puck goes down, crosses the other end, it then gets brought back the other end for a defensive zone face-off. That's called automatic icing or no-touch icing, which is a rule that's used in USA hockey's adult leagues and a lot in the Canadian hockey's adult leagues and all that sorts of stuff for everyone except their elite level hockey players. Elite level hockey is different. What you can do at the moment is it's called beating the puck. If you're one of the players from the team that fired the puck down the other end, if you beat the defending team to some point along the way, and it's supposed to be the face-off circles to where the puck's going to be, the referees can then say that it cancels the icing because you've won the race to the puck. I understand this is a bit of a confusing concept. Why it's a problem is that it then results in players skating as fast as they possibly can to get to the other end of the rink. What's the problem with that?
Go straight into the wall.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it is unfortunately catastrophically bad. There was a case, now to be fair, this wasn't actually an icing, but it was a very similar situation in a game that happened 2 nights ago, where a guy broke his collarbone. I'll just let me put that under the safety rule. Yeah, here it is. So this is not technically an icing, but it's pretty close to, and I'm going to show you why it's so dangerous. This was in a game 2 nights ago. So Jane, your team manager, from if you're in the dev squad, she was playing in this game. In fact, she's the one that almost ices the puck. It's a defensive zone face-off for the team in red. Right. So the puck there has been played from their side of the halfway line. That's right down in the defensive zone. They cleared it down the other end. So now there's a race. And a collision. And a broken collarbone. I think they were lucky it was just a collarbone, to be honest. The guy hit the boards pretty hard. That snapped his collarbone clean. That's with shoulder pads and everything. It doesn't take, the boards are pretty tough. So that's an example of racing for the puck. What would you do differently to avoid that? If the rules allow you to chase down the other end, what do you reckon you should do as a player?
Slow down earlier.
Yeah, skate under control. It's an easy thing to say and a hard thing to do because we want to play, we want to be competitive, we want to do the best we can. We've got to be really mindful of it. We'll have a bit more of a look at that in some of the later slides. Yeah, icing. We're trying to get that rule changed, but I'll let you know more about that if and when it happens, because it's bloody dangerous. So you can win the race to icing. You can change when you've done icing. If you watch elite level hockey at all, you'll see when there's an icing call, players aren't allowed to change from the team that iced the puck. In our league, they're letting us change, which kind of defeats the point. Like if you're going to have an icing and make it a penalty, or make it something that's going to have a negative impact on the team that iced the puck, because the whole aim behind it is to prevent teams from just getting the puck and firing it all the way down the other end all the time, and just basically running down the clock. So, for example, I get a 1-goal lead with a minute to go. Just shoot the puck down the other end and make you go and get it. Go get it. Go get it. Go get it. Clock ticks down. Can't score like that, and it's effectively time wasting. So the idea is to prevent things like that by forcing you then to have a defensive zone face-off. But it's also supposed to prevent you from getting a change, so you say you're tired. But that particular rule isn't being enforced. It's like we got the worst of both worlds. You can't get it. You can get a change, but you can race into the boards and break your neck. So yeah, we're working on. There's a discussion going on with the rink management at the moment about whether or not we can have that rule changed. There's no icing on a penalty kill. If you're down a player, because it's a penalty kill, you can fire the puck all the way down the other end, and there's no repercussions for that. The puck won't be brought back. The game just continues. Also, players must attempt to play the puck. If the puck goes all the way down the other end and the other players from the opposition just kind of let it go and ignore it, they will be penalised for wasting time. All right. Now, in the dev squad, and I know a lot of the other programs, I don't know if the Griffins have one that's the same, but I know the Southern Lights do, and I think the Big Deals might as well. We have a code of conduct. You will have all been given a copy of it as part of the PDF that we emailed out to you, and we will want a signed copy of that before your first game, so we know you acknowledge that you read it. But essentially, it just means no aggro and don't escalate anything. If something goes wrong, assume that it was an accident. Your opponent almost definitely didn't mean to do it, and don't escalate. That's really the key to it. Be careful and look after each other. The number one priority is this is a game which has risk associated with it. There's contact, there's collisions, there's a very, very hard surface with no give in it. It's easy to fall over. You can go pretty fast. And when you do fall over, you don't have the benefit of grass and mud to slow you down. You basically keep sliding until you hit something. So we have a duty of care to look after each other and be as safe as we possibly can. And that's really what our code of conduct is about, as much as possible, is don't escalate anything. If something happens, let it go, regardless of what it is, and be careful and look after and respect each other. Just because that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be anyway. don't be dicks. Penalties. I've already shown you There's a bunch of videos of people escalating things, which I'm not gonna show you. I'll stick them up on our Facebook group so you can kind of see them if you want to have a look. But I don't think they're terribly useful. It's just people getting silly on an ice rink and doing stuff that's unnecessary. If you do get a penalty, the default is 2 minutes. You go and sit in a box on the other side, and you're basically locked up for 2 minutes, or longer if it's deemed to be a more major offence. But anything more than 2 minutes is pretty unusual. You'll usually only get more than 2 minutes if you start arguing with refs or carrying on or anything like that, or whacking people with sticks and that sort of stuff. So basically, don't. But if you get two, I mean, it could be something innocent like tripping, where it can just sometimes just happen. You're contesting the puck and you accidentally tip someone over. You didn't mean to do it, but it's still a penalty. Knocking someone over because you win gravity. If you're a bigger person, you're likely to win the collisions. Expect to get penalised regardless of whether or not you meant it. I know I spent a fair bit of time in a penalty box a few seasons ago just because I was big and I win the crashes. So if someone runs into me, they fall over. All right, I guess I'll do two for that. Don't ever argue with the refs. In no sport ever has it ever made a difference. Some of the refs will, if you argue with you, they'll immediately give you a 10-minute game misconduct, which means you're out. You're off the game. Some refs will explain stuff to you if they have time, like maybe you've tripped someone over and you're not sure. Some of the refs will explain it to you, others won't. Depends how much time they have, and also how much they understand the rules themselves. There are some refs who are really good at it, some perhaps not so much. But either way, if something happens and you're not sure and you get penalised, afterwards you can come and talk to one of your coaches and we'll explain it to you, or we'll find out for you. We can talk to the referees and say, hey, what was that for? Oh, okay. But yeah, so that's basically the gist of penalties. You can get back on earlier after a penalty if there's a goal scored against you. So a goal scored negates the penalty. We won't talk about delayed penalties. No one's going to do that in C2. Sorry, in Div 9. Any questions about penalties?
Yeah, question. Time wasting penalties, does that happen much in our div?
Not much. It can. Are you referring to playing the puck out of play? Or
Yeah, or maybe like setting up slowly, or
unless it's really blatant, because with beginners it's hard to tell. Like it takes you a while to get up. But yeah, so one of the key things there is if you deliberately play the puck out of play, so like out of the rink into the netting from your defensive zone, you should get a 2-minute penalty, and the player who did it will get 2 minutes in the box, and that's the same as the NHL rule. But if you do something like kind of just lie on the puck and stick your backside on it in the corner, or if you just refuse to play it, then you'll get penalised for delay the game. It's pretty unusual though. I don't think I've ever seen it happen in C2/Div 9. Usually because most players don't actually have the skill to put the puck out of play. It's uncommon to find someone who can lift it that high. It's usually someone trying to rim it around the glass or something like that and they get it wrong. It's almost always an accident anyway. But yeah, it's pretty unusual, but it can occasionally happen. Technically, goaltenders are supposed to do it if they play the puck behind the net and freeze it. So a goaltender is allowed to freeze the puck. So put their glove on top of it and stop the puck from moving in front of the crease or in front of the goal. They're not allowed to do that behind the red line. Behind the red line, they're required to play the puck, so they can flick it away or something or other. But they're not allowed to actually freeze the puck behind there. Not all rules. I haven't seen that enforced in Div 9. In fact, I haven't seen it enforced really anywhere where they're supposed to do it. But quite often, a goalie gets the puck under their glove and they'll just stop it, and so they'll stop the game. But kind of depends a bit too on the referee. Some will ping them, some will ping it, but most won't. Does that answer your question?
yeah, thank you.
Again, you won't see it very much, but sometimes. Good question. Thank you. Our higher authority is the International Ice Hockey Federation rulebook. We have some local variations, as I think I've already discussed, but you can download that book. It's for free on the net. It's just a PDF. Have a read if you're bored. It is quite interesting, just in terms of the level of detail it goes into about some stuff that you think, really? It's like for real. We have a tribunal and we have a system of if there's something that happens behind the play that the referees missed, all the games are videoed. So there's a live stream. You can watch yourselves play afterwards. It's actually a really valuable thing to do. You can learn a lot from watching the games afterwards. And we do that in our program. We have a Tuesday night Zoom session after our games where we go through the previous week's game and look at what happened, but how we can improve from it. But yeah, so there's that. So anything that happens behind the play will usually get seen. And if something does happen behind the play that shouldn't, there is a pathway for team managers to escalate it to the rink people who can then have a close look, because they don't watch the videos. There's 100 hours of video a week. You're not going to watch all of that. But we can kind of, say something happens, someone, you're skating along and someone gets crazy and starts whacking you over the back of the head with a stick or something. We can get that on a video, and then we can send that to the rink management, and they will say, yes, that person is going to get suspended for X amount of weeks or whatever for that activity. It does happen. It's pretty rare, but it does happen. So there is an escalation process if something gets missed by the referees. Any questions about that? Oh, it's getting late, isn't it? My apologies. It always takes longer than I thought. Oops, don't do that. Alrighty, safety. Now, this is where it gets quite important. Hockey is a dangerous game. You all know that, or at least you should all know that. There are risks associated with what we do that we can't fully eliminate. We wear protective equipment. Get the best quality protective equipment that you can. It does make a difference. The more expensive stuff generally is better. Not always, but generally. Good shin guards, because that's where you're going to get the most amount of stuff. You want to have shorts with decent padding on the back of them, so you don't break a coccyx or something like that if you fall on your backside. All your stuff has to be hockey gear. We had a few players who've sort of been skating around in lacrosse helmets for a while, but that was pretty quick because they're different and their protection requirement is different. But there are some really big, major, important things. You must never use your feet to kick, push, or what with anyone, because you've got skates on the end of them. Those things are pretty dangerous. Did any of you hear about the guy in the UK who died last year from the skate that hit him in the throat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's extraordinarily rare. I think that's 1 every 10 years or something in all of the hockey players across the entire world, which is, it's a less fatal game than rugby. Rugby, more people die playing rugby. But it's still, you don't want it to happen. Skates are dangerous. They're sharp and they can do a lot of damage very quickly. So we have to treat our feet with absolute respect, and you never, ever, ever use them. If someone falls on top of you, don't sort of kick your way out of trouble. Just keep your feet down on the ice. Just keep your feet on the ice. It's an absolute cardinal sin to use your feet for anything other than skating. Your stick is also a pretty dangerous weapon. You think how fast the end of it can be moving if you whack someone with it, so don't. Keep your stick on the ice. Don't ever deliberately use it as anything apart from to hit pucks with. Don't intentionally cause people to fall over. Again, it's pretty obvious. Falling over risks all sorts of injuries. Wrists, elbows, shoulders, arms. It happens. A lot of people get broken limbs from falling over onto the ice. It's a very unforgiving surface. It doesn't have any flex in it. If you hit it, it's not going to break. You are. Everyone's unstable. Everyone needs to be careful. If you can get back off. I'm going to show you some more videos here of some stuff that's really important. There's one here. This is a collision that occurred in this season a couple of years ago with a girl called Naomi Conway who came through our program. She's okay with me showing you this video. So just watch what happens in the top right-hand side of the screen. This, from the point of view of safety, we looked at that video a little bit earlier of the chase that resulted in the broken collarbone. Well, this is similar, but arguably, but probably a significantly worse injury. The player here on the right-hand side, that's Naomi Conway. She's a little bit shaky on her feet, and you can kind of see it when she turns. She's just not a beginner skater. Okay, pretty normal. And there's a player who's chasing after her, and they're both going in to try and get the puck in the corner. It's a pretty normal game situation. Right? What's happening there?
Bit of push and shove.
Well, it's more that Naomi's trying to slow down before she runs into the boards, and the other player skated up behind her and hit her leg with his leg from behind. I don't think he meant to do it. But either way, it's flicked her feet up from underneath her. Crunch, legs first into the boards. Guess what that did?
Knocked her over.
Broke a leg.
Oh,
Snapped the tibia and the fibia. Took her 18 months to recover from that. Right? And it happened because the player following her was too keen and didn't give her room. Another example. You all see that?
That looked like a full-on trip.
It's not deliberate.
It's just they come from behind in the blind spot.
All right. Now, in that case, they were a bit lucky. There wasn't an injury. But it could have been really bad. That's a very common situation there for broken ankles, broken legs. The feet first into the boards, something's going to give. In that particular case, they were pretty lucky there was no injury. But it's the same situation. It's a player chasing another one into the boards. Bit too much enthusiasm. I'm going to go win this puck battle, and we want enthusiasm. I'm not saying don't play hockey, but when that happens, just back off a bit. It's not that important. It's just a game of hockey, all right? Other stuff we need to be particularly careful of is watching where we're going and taking care around other players. This is another situation in a game from last season. This is in a higher grade, but it's the same sort of question of respecting your opponents and looking out for each other. All right, let's watch that again. Now, in that particular situation, that's not a check. That's the player in the white holding her ground and the player in the red contesting the puck. There isn't really, that's not really a foul. So we'll look at where the puck is. And then it's really just a collision. But it did result in the player in the white getting a pretty decent concussion out of that. Be careful. Doesn't matter that much.
Look at the replays here. So Lekin is.
And you can see it in slow motion in all its gory details at the elite level. This was Colorado and the Kraken this season. Similar sort of situation.
62. Winning on the far left side, battling for the puck. Oh, man. He just got unlucky. He got stuck with his own speed in between a rock and a hard place and just couldn't control himself going into the boards there. That's really not a dirty play by Alexiak. But at full speed, just that little touch.
Doesn't have much, does it?
It was horrific to watch.
Say again? Richard?
That was horrific to watch.
Yeah.
So
So go
quick
with it.
and just, yeah, head disappearing into the body.
And you can imagine how bad that could be. It wasn't a foul. It's just not being careful enough around other players, especially close to the boards. You've got to be super careful. Someone's racing towards the boards. Give them some room. Right? It's just not that important. We just don't want people going home in wheelchairs or worse, you know. Give them room, make sure everyone gives each other room. It's so important to have that, just that level of, you know what? I could race you to the boards and it could be a real close contest, but I don't want to hurt you. Right, and we'll reinforce that through our program as to every single pre-game briefing we talk about. It's like, remember, it's just a game of hockey. Doesn't matter that much. Grand final, whatever, I don't care. You know, we play respectful and we look after each other. We don't want anyone getting themselves stuck.
And we look after the opposition as well.
Absolutely,
A lot of
yes.
us like practice together on the Wednesday
Yes,
session,
yes,
and
yeah.
we look forward to playing with each other. No one's out there to get you. It can happen, but it's about supporting your opposition as well, because they're learning just like us.
Yep, absolutely. So it's a mutual respect thing. So absolutely, you're spot on there, Richard. Good. We're nearly done, I promise. What do we know about concussion these days? Not nearly as much as we need to, but a lot more than we used to know. The Australian Sports Commission is now recommending a 21-day break for anyone who has a concussion. The rink is not enforcing this at the moment. There is a concussion rule, but it's kind of a little bit unclear and it doesn't seem to be all that well enforced. But the general rule at the moment is if the game stops for you, if you're injured and there's a stoppage and you have to leave the ice as part of a stoppage, you're not allowed back on for that game. It's more or less enforced. For us in our program, if we suspect you have a concussion, we will ban you for 3 weeks. We were just going to say, sorry, you're not playing for 3 weeks. You can come along and open the gate for us, but you're not playing for 3 weeks because we need to make sure you're minimising the risk. Your hockey helmet will protect you from a broken skull. It will not protect you from a concussion. None of them will. So just because you've got a helmet on doesn't mean you can't get a concussion. It means you're not going to break your skull. And if you get whacked by a puck, it's going to do less damage, although it will still hurt. Ask me about it one day. But yeah, major injuries, same sort of thing. We get broken bones in lower grades more so than high grades, and there's a couple of reasons for them. One of them is just a skill thing. You don't have the control or the ability to stop without colliding with things like the boards, and the boards have no give, or the ice, which again has no give, and that's just a skill thing. But also there is a significant percentage of players, and we encourage them, we want you to do it, who haven't played much in the way of competitive sport before at all, and may have missed out on some of that when you're younger bone density development stuff, like running and weightlifting and that sort of stuff, those sorts of things that build your bone density and basically make your bones stronger. So quite often we can find there's players who jump on the ice, and we encourage them. We want everyone playing. It's a great sport. We all love it. And you'll understand why once you've played it for a while. It's incredibly addictive. But we do often get, certainly in lower grades, a few broken bones. And we can avoid that mostly by being respectful to each other and looking after each other. If we do that, we cut out 80% of the potentials for injury. I mean, you can still catch an edge and do something weird to yourself like that. But on the whole, most injuries are caused by collisions, and the collisions are mostly avoidable. So that's how we're going to play. Fair push and shove, but not colliding with people, and kind of understanding the players that you're playing against as well. If you got two big guys and they crash into each other, yeah, that's probably going to be all right. But if a big guy crashes into a little guy, it's probably not going to be all right. And it's really, the onus is on the big guy to avoid that, but also a little bit on a little guy too. If a little guy just skates head first into a big guy without looking, you kind of got to look where you're going. Show you an example of where that can be an issue. Right, that's a big versus little collision. I'll show it to you again. If you were going to say that was anyone's fault, whose fault would that have been?
The littler person.
Yeah. Not really looking where they're going. So that's one of those unfortunate incidents. That wasn't really anyone's fault. They're both contesting the puck. You got to look where you're going, but that's easy to say and hard to do. And it's an unfortunate collision where the little guy lost physics. I just kind of ran head first the guy's hip. Oh, I couldn't get out of the way of that. And yeah, another concussion.
Sorry, was that a penalty against anyone?
No.
No.
That's just a collision. It wasn't, you know, they were both contesting the puck. Just a collision. You could make a case there that, yeah, no, not really. There's no penalty in that at all. It's just a collision. Look where you're going. There's a saying in hockey, you know, keep your head up, look where you're going. It's hard to do when you're chasing the puck because you've got to look at the puck as well. Otherwise, you don't know where it is. So, yeah, I'm not, it probably sounds like hockey's the most dangerous game in the world, but really all I'm trying to do is emphasize that if we look after each other and we just back it off to the level where we have control over what we're doing, most of these things just go away. They don't happen in the higher grades because we kind of know where we are. And the grades are fairly even, so everyone's kind of traveling at mostly the same sorts of speeds and mostly the same sorts of levels of skill or lack of skill in my case. But we kind of mostly avoid most of those collisions just because we've kind of got that level of awareness. But when you're starting off, you don't have it. So the trick is skate within your own abilities, and play safe. You know, it's just such a key notion. If I just think I'm going to go on the ice and I'm going to play safe, it makes a massive difference. It's an attitude.
I'd just like to add something to that, just because I know like a lot of us are beginner skaters and it's something maybe not mentioned, but knowing how to fall properly is quite important. And it's best if you know, you can't choose how you fall a lot of the time, but you should be aiming if fall's going to happen, like you want to fall forward first onto your knees and hands. Because if you fall backwards, you can't really, you know,
Yeah, you can get a whiplash and drive your elbows into the ground and that sort of stuff as well. Absolutely, yeah. Good point.
Likewise, once you have fallen a couple of times, you kind of get a feel for where your padding is. I remember my first fall, I was really surprised that I should hurt, but I don't because of the padding. And then learning how to fall so that that's your natural way of falling, you know.
Yeah.
I got injured last season because I fell and my knee fell a funny way, and I sort of know now, oh, I've got to make sure I'm falling onto the knee pad correctly.
It's also a bit of the design of the pads. Some of the really cheap shin pads don't actually wrap around your knee all that well. The more expensive ones, unfortunately, do tend to cup your knee a bit deeper and give it better protection. Not perfect, but better. So there are things to invest money in that will make a difference, and I think good shinnies is certainly one of them. The best shinny.
And I think the best fall, I guess, the fall you want to avoid is the slipping on a banana peel and your legs go up in front of you.
Do you know what the number one cause of that is?
Imagine leaning backwards or bananas probably, but
Shin guard.
Leaving your guards on.
Leaving your guards on. Absolutely. That's the one. Whoop. I thought I had skates on, and instead you've got nothing. Yeah, I did it. I left some skate guards on at Docklands once and broke a kneecap. I just fell forwards onto my kneecap and cracked it. Took 2 years for that thing to feel normal again. They slow pretty slow to heal. More stuff. I've already shown you that video on pitchforking. Keep your stick on the ice. Don't wave it around in the air. If it's on the ice, it can't whack someone in the teeth, and that's a good thing. And again, staying on your feet. If you're lying on the ground, you're not useful. It doesn't matter enough. You don't need to dive to drop pucks. It's recreational beginner league hockey. Stay on your feet, and you'll get penalised for leaving your feet deliberately anyway. At least you should. Behind someone, again, we've kind of been through that. We've just looked at some example videos, and hopefully that's kind of struck home. And like, oh yeah, I'm going to be careful when I skate up behind people. Keep the gate closed. Normally, most teams will have, like we certainly do. We usually have someone allocated to keep closing the gates. But an open gate is a hazard. You can skate into it at a funny angle or hit it at a funny angle, and there's no giving those things. They've got sharp edges. Look up. We know about that one. Give your opposition the benefit of the doubt. You know, if someone crashes into you, they almost definitely didn't mean it. Someone whacks you in the face with a stick, they almost definitely didn't mean it. And you're wearing a face cage, so you'll be all right. Yeah, or your mouth guard's in properly, so you'll be all right-ish. Well, not quite as all right-ish anyway, for lack of a better. Certainly, I know in our program we have zero tolerance for deliberately unsafe play. So if anyone in our group does anything which we consider to be deliberately unsafe, we will remove them from the program. You won't get a second chance for it. It's a no. You do that, you're out. I have absolutely no zero tolerance for it. Same thing with abusive referees and that sort of stuff as well. It's an absolute no-no. In our program, anyone who has that sort of misconduct will be removed from our program. Depending on how far you went into the season, we may or may not give you a refund, but you'll be out. So yeah, keep your head screwed on, yeah. Yeah, we know about the Div 9 rule, staying on your feet. There's another rule in Div 9 and also Div 8. You're not allowed to fire a slap shot. Not that anyone can in this division, but don't even try. So if you're a field hockey player, for example, and you think I might lift the stick up and lift it down, a slap shot is defined as bringing the stick up above knee height before you take a shot. You can do a snapshot, so it's down low and snapping at it, but you're not allowed to lift your stick above your knees before you hit the puck. So none of those great big slappies from watching the NHL games. That's a no-no. And besides, at this level, no one can do one anyway. And generally, they don't work very well. We're working on discussion with that icing rule. We're trying to get it changed. Whether or not that happens before the first round for Div 9, which is this weekend, remains to be seen. But we're trying to get that rule changed. And have fun and keep it real. It's just a game of hockey. Have fun. You're not going to the NHL except as a spectator, so you want to enjoy this thing. And I can tell you, despite all this kind of shock horror videos of people falling over and breaking their legs, this game is the most fun you can have standing up. It's an amazing game. It's fast. It's got everything. It's absolutely brilliant. And I love it, and Jane loves it, and all that coaching people love it, and you guys will. I can't guarantee you will because it's not for everyone, but if I was going to take a bet on it, I'd be saying most of you will end up absolutely falling in love with this sport if you haven't already, because it is so much fun. But we want to keep it fun, and the only way to keep it fun is by keeping playing it, so looking after each other and respect. And that's it. Hooray! Questions?
You haven't mentioned net guards. What's
I haven't.
the
No,
policy?
you're quite right. And I probably should. The International Ice Hockey Federation is in the process of making them compulsory. What's happening at iceHQ with the beer league, I don't know, because we're not actually affiliated with that. IHV is, so if you're playing IHV hockey, it'll be compulsory if it isn't already. I don't know what they're doing with their rules. But I don't know about our rule if they'll become compulsory or not. I've got one. I've never worn it. I will only wear it if I absolutely have to, because I hate the things. They're horrible. They don't fit very well, and I'm not going to go
You
there.
look like you've got a neck like me, mate. So yeah, last two I tried didn't fit.
If you look at it from a statistical point of view, it's such an incredibly rare thing to happen. You are literally more likely to get struck by lightning. But I don't have a lightning conductor when I walk around outside. But I have slash resistant socks. They're good because that's where you get skates. They hit you in the back of the legs. So I have cut resistant socks. They're really good. But neck guards, I don't know what the situation will be. At some point, I would say they will probably be made compulsory, at which point we'll all have to wear them. And the rink will have a bonanza selling them because all of a sudden there's 1,000 beer league players who need to buy one of these things. There's probably a $20 margin in them. So there's 20 grand for the shop. That's nice. But I don't know. I don't know when that will happen. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. But I mean, all the gear when you start wearing it is uncomfortable. So just one more uncomfortable thing doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I wear everything, but that's just me.
Yeah. I wear a visor instead of a face cage. When I played when I was younger, we didn't wear visors. I broke my nose a few times. It was just kind of one of those things. But also, I'm from an era when you got a concussion, you got up and kept playing because that was tough.
Yep.
We now know that was damn stupid. But we didn't know that at the time. We were just stupid kids doing stupid stuff. So yeah, I mean, it'd be one of those things that I'm used to a visor now. I don't care. So yeah, they're not compulsory yet. They probably will be soon. It's up to you if you want to wear one or not in the meantime.
Well, at least we have the choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key thing. You've got the choice to do it. It's the same with visors. I'm personally, I don't like the sort of the double standard boys and girls thing. If the boys are allowed to wear visors, the girls should be allowed to wear visors. It shouldn't make any difference. it's your own fault or your own decision, and I think that's how it should be. But you know, I mean, they don't enforce us wearing shoulder pads. They're not compulsory. I think you're crazy not to use one, but I don't find them uncomfortable. So anyway, you got a couple of chins though. That card's horrible. Maybe I should lose some weight. But yeah, so that's kind of it for the night. It's gone a bit half an hour over time, but it always does. This session is recorded, so I will be putting a link up to it on the Dev Squad Facebook group, and also some of those missing videos. I'll put them up there as well, so you can kind of see them too, which will hopefully help as well. This is not covering everything, but just kind of the key rules and the key bits of sort of safety consideration. So with a bit of luck, we can make each season safer than the one prior and reduce the amount of injuries that we have, which again isn't very much, but we'd like to get it down to 0. Any more questions? We'll wind it up, and I think the Tigers have your first game this Saturday, or is it the Jokers? I can't remember. Anyway, it's one of the two. I will see you guys this weekend, and the other group will see the others. And for those of you in the Deals and the Griffins and the Southern Lights, we look forward to playing against you and having a great season of hockey. And thank you for being part of this. For all of you who've sacrificed an hour and a half of your very valuable time on a Tuesday night to listen to me crap on.
Jokers Sunday.
Sorry?
Looking forward to it. Jokers are Sunday at
Jokers are
5:05. So I'll see you guys there.
Not a problem. We'll see you all there, and see you at the rink, and let's love this game because it's so much fun.
Have a game
Thank
on
you.
Sunday.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.
Yeah.